All right, There Will Be Bourbon has returned. It's the third year of this slowly, ever slowly growing podcast. And I almost made it for the third year in a row without a podcast in the month of January. Wait, no, I almost made it for the first time without one in January. But fortunately, the good Louisville Gun, who we're going to talk to, is helping me remedy that situation. And before I do, I just want to thank everyone who actually does listen to this. There's a few of you, which is nice because that's better than nobody. Um, and also, it's always fueled by America's native spirit. And we got a solid one tonight as I was able to leave the fine state of California in terms of everything that is not related to the guy that's in the governor's mansion. But fueling my discussion with Mr. Louisville Gun tonight will be a Weller Full Proof single barrel from the great Lawler's Liquor Store in Napa, which you probably can't get it right now, but if you go there, he's constantly got single barrel picks. So that'll be fueling this discussion. So yeah, let's bring the guy in. It's Louisville Gun. How you doing, brother?
I'm living the dream, man. I mean, I'm up here with Captain America's stand-in, Eric. There will be bourbon host.
It is.
Man, it's a walking recruitment poster for the U.S. Army. Can't
Well,
believe they actually let him get out.
considering I did actual recruitment for the Army for a while, it didn't really, it's not working. So, that's not my fault entirely. Anyway, so look, this individual is someone I wanted to talk. I want to talk to you obviously for a very long time. You go all the way back to when we started the Goon Zooms. That was a big thing in 2020, especially with COVID going on and everyone just kind of living in a world of stupidity and the unknown of the unknown every day. And I know you were a big part of putting that together and keeping everybody on. And I don't know if you still participate in them. I mean, it's been forever since I was on one of those things.
When it comes to stupidity, I'm a subject matter expert.
Likewise.
I mean, there's very few people on my level as far as dumb shit goes. So,
and that's what I want people to understand because I've noticed from just looking at analytics on the podcast, right? Like, so there's, the YouTube thing, which I strictly tell everybody, I only use the YouTube version because it allows me to upload through Zoom an audio and a video. That's it, right? So I just throw the audio up there to have it, or the video up there to have it. And the audio goes to all the other podcast sites. And it's clearly more popular on the podcast sites than it is on YouTube. So for someone who's not looking at your background on YouTube, right? They'll be like, what the hell and who the hell is Louisville Gun? Why won't he say his name? Why are so many of these guys anonymous? Well, we'll get into that. But one of the main reasons I want you to have or wanted to have you on is because you, as an anonymous account, going all the way up with Dem, who's at least visual, but you guys are two of the biggest ones I think that have been on there. You do incredible amount of trolling on a world-class level, because there's one thing to just make fun of people and there's another thing to actually get some traction with the stuff you say because it's actually intelligent and it actually makes people think about, hey, why the hell is this dude saying this stuff and what is he actually saying? So that's kind of the main reason I want you on here because, right, yes, you are what you call in your own bio an accomplished shit poster, but that's an art. You can't, no one can just, not everybody can be a shit poster, right? There's a lot of people that can talk shit. Doesn't make it interesting, doesn't make it funny, doesn't make it worth paying attention to. And you've managed to do that. So I'm just curious, when did you come to Twitter and what was your intent at the origin? Because I know mine's been completely different over the last 15 years, from what I wanted to do and what I've ended up doing. So
yeah, see, that's the thing, man. I don't see myself as any kind of influencer or anything like that. I'm surprised that I've got like 17,000 followers now because I don't think I'm particularly interesting. So whenever people actually come to me for like advice or something like that, it always triggers my Dunning Kruger because I think, I'm just a fucking moron. Why are you listening to me? I could be just, some 13-year-old kid. Up here in his speedos, just lollygagging on the internet. I mean, obviously that's not true.
I'm a voice filter wisdom going on.
Yeah. No, of course. Yeah. But I turned 50 last year. I've been on the internet since the early 90s. I like I said in my bio, I'm a peacetime 90s era vet. I got out of the army right when the internet was starting. And I've been
that's
on
when I was coming in.
You know,
it's been all right. We'll get into that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the web since the early '90s. I have seen, things that it's like that Rutger Hauer thing from Blade
Yeah,
Runner. I've seen
Rutger.
things you wouldn't believe,
Yeah.
shit posts off of Usenet, flame wars going across kiwi farms and something awful. Um, all these things will die like tears in the rain or whatever. Um, so I've seen things progress from
Yeah.
Usenet to the early days of discussion forums.
What was Usenet?
To,
Is that what that is you're describing?
okay, so Usenet was like back in the early days, like in the late '80s, before there actually was a World Wide Web. People used to yell at each other over the internet in um, discussion groups called Usenet. It was basically you would sign on to your internet provider and um, you would download little chats from people where people would basically post their rants and download it. And then you would hit a reply. And you know how in the army sometimes you get reply to all emails where somebody says, yeah, and it's like 7,000
Yeah.
responses sent off. You would see shit like that and Usenet constantly. The Navy SEAL copy pasta would have fit in perfectly on Usenet because people just were entirely too full of themselves. And from in 93, 94, people transitioned from Usenet to the very first discussion forums.
Yeah.
And then from there, we started seeing social media start to take place with like Facebook um, and various other stuff. And then, Reddit
Rate my
and
pick or whatever. What was that? What was the college thing? Rate my picture, rate my
Face Smash or something like that.
Yeah, something weird when I was in college. It was like, would you or rate? Yeah. Anyway,
or Hot or Not.
Hot or Not. Yeah, that
probably,
was like a precursor to Facebook.
Yeah, you were probably on Hot or Not, like getting hit by all these co-eds, like, oh yeah, Eric, he's so sweet. Oh, it's 9, he's a 10. Please come over and give me babies. Me, I was a solid 3. So, I had to develop my talents elsewhere with like being smart and funny and having access to Rohypnol. So, it was it was a good time had by everyone. Well, at least it was had by me. I don't care about everyone else. So
that's the spirit. Okay, so you said a couple of. Well, hold on. I'm doing this all wrong because it's been a while, right? So again, I know
that's what she said.
Yeah, I get a question every now and then about the actual bourbon. So Weller is Buffalo Trace makes it. The big reason Weller has gotten so popular and so astronomically and ridiculously, in my opinion, and probably a lot of people's opinion, priced is because it is a wheated bourbon, much like all the Pappy Van Winkle line that Buffalo Trace makes. And the rumors behind it are that it is simply the exact same mash bill and is just a younger version of Pappy with more availability. Not 100% true, but the wheated stuff is true. It's very good.
How would you rate it? I mean, how does it compare to like the Calumet that I sent you?
The Calumet is very good. And I really like what they do because they've got some really like higher age stated stuff. Like they got a 16-year now you can get, like, usually, well, I haven't seen it out here. Virginia's a very weird state. But in California, the 16-year Calumet is going for like, I think 149, 159, something like that. And you can get that consistently, right? Now, if you ever actually go look at the MSRPs for what Pappy Van Winkle goes for, the 23 year is supposed to be $279. You can add 2 digits and then multiply that by about 3 or 4. So what I think with the Calumet Farms, that stuff is delicious. Me and actually, if you know Walt, our good buddy from the Goon World, Walt and Nick, we got together over I think a 14-year, 15-year I had this time last year with them in a drunken hotel.
Yeah, see, I'm not a big bourbon guy. I just I've got my Jefferson's Ocean that I like, and that's about it. I don't really get into it too much.
Yeah, you like what you like. But you asked about the Weller. The Weller, it's good. It's just the prices have gotten stupid on it. So this is the full proof, which just means it's a barrel proof, but it's also a single barrel. So you usually don't see these because it's a store pick from that specific store. So these guys got together, sampled a bunch of barrels, picked one, and then they bottled up thousands of the bottles or however many bottles that come from it to make this. So it's very good. I do like it, but if it wasn't for the package deal that I got it in, then there's no way you'll see this version specifically, the full proof. $400 and up at any store, unless you can actually get it for the way it's supposed to be, which is probably, I think retail for this is either 50 or 60, but you're never going to see that unless you're in a state like Virginia where you got state controlled prices, and then you got to get lucky and show up at the store when they release it, and then you'll get it for that price. But
yeah, pricing's crazy everywhere. I mean, here, I literally live down the street from Angel's Envy. I'm 2 miles away from Angel's Envy, and the pricing is just nuts on everything.
Well, that was what the package was. It was this store pick and an Angel's Envy barrel proof store pick from them, and it was the two of them for $200, which like I said, can't really beat those prices considering what even just Angel's Envy on its own. They sell that here in Virginia for like $90, and that's just the regular one.
Jeez,
yeah, it's kind of
even Blanton's here is gone insane. So
I'm glad you brought that up. Here's the first bourbon story of the night. All right, so. Again, I'm in Virginia now, and the way Virginia is, it's a state controlled for all their alcohol, especially liquor. So things like the Buffalo Trace, right? It's not on the shelves readily for whatever reason. I don't know if it's an allocation for them or what, but they have, not just for bourbon and whiskey, but for all their spirits that are what they consider high demand or limited allocation, whatever. They do a limited release spirits drop. You have to sign up for their email or follow them on Instagram and Facebook, and you'll get a link when that stuff's available. And it seems to be so far about 2 or 3 times a week they're doing this. And then you'll get a link and it'll show you all the stores that have this stuff throughout Virginia, and it's first come, first serve, right? I live 5 minutes by walking to an ABC store. So a couple Saturdays ago, I get that email. I see it. That email was sent at like 2:20. I saw it at 2:25. I walked down to the store. It's like 2:32. It's been 12 minutes since that email went out. There's 3 dudes I see all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye just sprinting. So my first reaction is like, oh shit, something bad must be happening. Because why would 3 adult men be sprinting across a parking lot unless they're either running from something or something's going on? Quick check, nothing's going on. I see the last trail dude as he walks around the corner or sprints around the corner. He's sprinting into the ABC store. So in my head, I'm like, all right, I see how this is going. So I show up. He grabs the last bottle of Blanton's, gets it for the retail price of like, whatever, $47, I think it is. Like it's supposed to be priced, which it's not anymore. And I just laugh because I'm like, this dude literally sprinted for a bottle of Blanton's. And there's no justification for that in my mind. I mean, it's decent if you like it, but it's nothing to write home about. It just isn't. But that's, I guess, the market here. So
that's how it is, man.
There you go. I will never be running for a bottle of Blanton's for $47. I mean, I'd be nice to stumble into it, but I guess that's how it's going to go down here in the OVA. But, at least I'm on the free side and not over on the DC side, where you can see all this stuff and get all kinds of bottles, but the prices are just absolutely stupid. And Buffalo Trace is there. But
see, I haven't been on base in over 10 years. What if you go to Class 6? Is any of the stuff available there or no?
Depends what state you're in. So, when I was in California, like, that's kind of honestly one of the best things about California is like you walk into Target or any grocery store and you can buy liquor. Like the spirits are there and they're all great price in terms of like Buffalo Trace, Wild Turkey 101, all of them. Like they'll be at Trader Joe's for, $17-18. Prices are great. And the supply is amazing. It's all the other stuff. Like you got to remember, like flagship products are just, there's so much of them that people tend to overlook them. Like if I just put a regular bottle of Buffalo Trace that you can pick up anywhere for $20 versus Blanton's or some of this other stuff, you'd be like, oh, wow, that's great. Yeah, it is. But for whatever reason, people are still, like going crazy for all this other stuff that doesn't say Buffalo Trace on it. When in actuality, the product in the bottle isn't that much different or definitely not that much better. So
see, I'm such a baby. I use mixers and everything. I like Long Island iced teas.
You like what you like, man.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter to me. I'm like, oh, it's such a great bourbon. Oh, it's so weedy or something, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even, I don't even notice.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, so there's the bourbon stuff for the night. But yeah, that was one of the cool things. So yeah, if you go on base, you don't really see anything crazy. Like every now and then you'll have like a bottle or something like Booker's. I remember I got at the Class 6 on Travis Air Force Base for like $56, and you'll never see it for that cheap. But that was just, time and place.
Are you in Northern Virginia or Southern Virginia, or where are you?
I am in Northern Virginia now. Yes, I am.
Oh, well, there should be all kinds of.
Yeah, I can tell. I don't. I like you. I'm free. I can. Yeah, I am in Arlington, or Virginia, not in Arlington, California. I'm in Arlington, Virginia. I'm in the free side. I just submitted my $52 for my concealed carry that I can do out here. Like I got all kinds of freedom out here that I didn't have in
$52. What kind of communism is that, man? We've got constitutional carry here.
Okay, well, I'd have to live in Louisiana, which I don't want to
do. Yeah.
Actually, no, wait. Are you in Louisville or Kentucky?
I'm in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay, that's what I don't know why I said Louisiana. I'm like, yeah. So you're actually, you know what? We got to talk more.
You think I'm Demp? You mistook me for Demp.
No, I tell you something. I
am not as handsome as Demp.
I know, but I always see Louisville gun, and the first thing I think is Louisiana for some reason because it says Lewis, right? So I automatically just default to Louisiana because I'm an idiot. I'm not a very smart guy. So
join the club, brother.
Yeah. Okay. So you are in Kentucky. That's right. It all makes sense now, which is why you sent that delicious bottle of Calumet Farms, which, by the way, go back to what your original question was. I love that stuff, and it's readily available, and people should buy it, but they probably don't buy enough of it, which I'm all for, because I don't want them doing the same thing to that, because that stuff's amazing.
Yeah, chicken cock. I had a bottle of that for a while, and that was
I got that one back there. I finally picked that up because for whatever like some stuff is just stupid priced in California, and that one always was. Like, if I can't try it at a bar for a reasonable price, I'm not going to go drop more than, $50 or $60 on something. And it was always way more than that. But out here, it was at, because these stores here have to sell stuff at MSRP or slightly above. And so I picked it up for like 55 or something. It's good. But
the local bourbon place I used to hang out at got raided by the ATF the other week, and they seized their entire inventory. So I don't know what's going on there, but.
So the ATF finally did something where they didn't kill dogs?
Well, I'm not sure if they had a dog to kill. I'm pretty sure if there was a dog in there, they would have shot it a few times.
Did you ever hear that interview with Joe Rogan with Ted Nugent like about a year and a half ago?
Oh, God, I hate Ted Nugent, though.
I do too, but he had a great point when he was on with Rogan about the ATF. Like he went on this 20-minute rant about him. And it's like, honest question, is there any point to the ATF in 2023?
Yeah, it's to make us as unhappy and inconvenient as possible. ATF is the physical manifestation of why we should not have a powerful government. It's, you just look at that agency and it's like, yeah, this is why the founders had a revolution, because the ATF is just filled with people doing stuff that we should revolt over. And that's how it is.
And one of his points was, like, okay, I get that. I can kind of understand the F part, but what are you guys doing with the A and the T? And that's, I guess it makes sense since you just brought up they raided a store, but like, seriously. And then the other thing is like, who wakes up and is like, man, I would love to be an ATF agent, or is proud to say that they are one?
Well, the guy that used to raise his hand in class and say, hey, teacher, you forgot to assign homework. That's your typical ATF agent. You're the guy that got shoved into a locker.
I've never met one. I've met or been around people who have been in just about every other, 3-letter or big agency. I honestly can't assume that they're a small agency, but I don't know who they are or where they're at, because no one claims it.
Well, just all the like the Customs and Border Patrol guys I know are all cool. Yeah. The marshals, I know they're all cool. Yeah, I know a bunch of marshals that used to be like SF and Navy SEALs and all that other shit. They're all fucking cool dudes. ATF guys, the agents I know are fucking douchebags, and I don't understand why. There's got to be something genetically wrong, like a chromosomal defect or something.
I've read like those descriptions they recruit for too. Like none of their descriptions, they're not really recruiting people that you would want to be associated with. If you read it, really dig down into the actual job description or the posting that they're doing. It's like,
must have 2 feet. Must have, must be breathing.
It's a weird collection of people, but yeah, I mean, that going back to Nugent, like, not a fan, but his point is spot on. It's like, your entire existence is to what you said, is to oppress, the constitutional rights for the most part.
Nugent's a douchebag too. I mean, the guy shit his pants to get out being drafted. I mean, come on, dude.
Really?
Oh yeah, he like shit his pants for like a week or something, and didn't wash and then showed up to the draft board, and he brags about that. He acts like he's some kind of Billy Badass. Dude ain't shit.
Yeah, I mean, like I mean, like I said, I thought the rant was funny, but we have people like this on both sides of the aisle, right? Everyone's got their little their celebrity that's attached to their cause that they champion. But when you pick them apart, they're no different. They're just more well known. And
oh yeah,
putting your faith and stock into people like that, like what's the point? I'd rather put it into some anonymous shit poster on the internet like yourself.
Well, exactly right, man. You got to make us famous.
All right, so let me get back. You went into the Army in the 90s. What made you join?
I was stupid. I mean, basically, I had I was having trouble at home, and I would go into MEPS, and I wanted to change my home situation as rapidly as possible. And they look at my ASVAB, and they're like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Well, what jobs are open?" And they're like, "Well, we don't have all day for that because your ASVAB scores were like top percentile."
Yeah, you were dumb, so that's good.
So I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I can do anything. What's available right now?" They're like, you can be a combat engineer. I'm like, well, when's that leave? Oh, well, it leaves soon. I'm like, well, I don't just want to be a combat engineer. I don't want to I'm like, what's involved with that? Oh, it's blowing stuff up. You'll love it. I'm like, oh, sounds like a great thing. Well, can I get airborne with that? Yeah, sure, of course.
My grandfather, a combat
engineer. Go off and do that, and realize I made the biggest mistake of my fucking life.
Where'd you end up?
Well, first was Korea, then was Bragg. And it was an interesting time. Back in the 90s, Korea was definitely where it's at if you wanted to have MOS specific training, because they were taking it very seriously.
Yeah.
I did more training in Korea in 1 year than I did in the rest of my time at Bragg.
I hear it's still it's always kind of been that way still.
Well, I mean, these days, who knows?
Away from the CONUS. Yeah, well, I think still the farther you get away from CONUS, the more serious you have to kind of do shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I spent an annual training in Korea once for 3 weeks, and yeah, it was every day was some sort of drill or somebody doing something like.
Yeah, I mean, I had like 3 45-day field problems spaced 6 weeks apart from each other, and but it was amazing. I mean, we did a lot of bang, we did a lot of MOS specific stuff, we did a lot of OPFOR stuff, we did a lot of back when I had one of my squad leaders was a 12 Echo reclass, which 12 Echo was a MOS that they just did away with after the Cold War because it was atomic demolition specialists. These were the guys that had the special atomic demolitions, the backpack nukes, and they would go behind enemy lines. And this guy had just like washed out. He failed the Delta Force selection, so he got sent over to our unit. He was really bitter about it. But I mean, he was filled with good info. Yeah. So, and but Korea was a good time. If you didn't have xenophobia, if you treat it like an experiment where you were going out there to enjoy yourself and learn, and as an 18, 19-year-old dude away from the U.S. for the first time and lacking supervision, it was a great time, but doing that, getting real drunk for a year and tearing my way through the locals, it was definitely something that I would recommend. But then coming back to CONUS and experiencing peacetime Fort Bragg was a nightmare.
Yeah. So did you just do an initial enlistment and got out, or did you stick around for 9/11 or any of that stuff that came out?
No, I got out. I got out back in 94. So yeah, 9/11 happened.
So yeah, what was that like then? So you came in, or you would have gotten out when Clinton was doing the downsizing, right? And everything was drastically.
Oh,
what was that like? Because I've heard stories, but
when I got to Bragg, dudes were showing off their combat patches from Desert Storm. I mean, that was the big thing back then. It's like, oh, you have combat patch from Desert Storm. Oh, and we had a couple guys in the unit that had combat patches from Panama.
Okay. So yeah,
and it's like,
and you were stuck in Korea for everything, huh?
Yeah, and that was the big thing, and downsizing was happening, and they were looking for reasons to get rid of dudes. And back then, people were getting popped for piss tests and get out of the army in 30 days. Dudes were getting hit with LSD charges out of the army in 30 days, and it was the training sucked. You had Operation Clean Sweep constantly.
What was that?
Were you ever on Bragg?
Just for a couple of weeks to do some SRP stuff. Never actually stationed there.
All right, so life in the airborne mafia is different from anywhere else. You get the floppy beret, you get the maroon beret, and back then, only the airborne and SF and Rangers had berets, so nobody understood that the cap was completely worthless. They thought, oh, you're elite, you got a beret on, you're elite, and everything on Bragg revolves around jumping. If you're not getting ready to jump, then you're training to jump, or you're doing some detail involved with jumping, or doing some kind of hurry up and wait thing to jump. And God, man, it's a nightmare of stupidity. It was just people getting hurt constantly and pretending they weren't hurt. Stupid exercises involving dropping heavy equipment, watching it fail as it burns in. I mean, I'll never forget seeing do you know what a C tractor is?
No.
You know what a C tractor is basically this Mercedes-Benz version of a pickup truck with a bulldozer blade on the front and a backhoe in the back.
Okay.
And part of the airborne capabilities was dropping, heavy equipment, 5-ton dump trucks, tanks, whatever. And we did a rig up.
Those are some of the best videos of watching those burn in, though. Like you're talking
exactly, about. Man. You see in a C tractor just
there goes a few $1 million gone.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, I guess we don't have to do PMCS on that anymore. So it's wild. I mean, but these days, man, it's got to be completely different for you kids. I can't imagine the sea change in how things are now that you guys have had 20 years of actually doing your job as opposed to, just pretending.
Well, I mean, there's a plus and minus to all of that, and the minus is kind of what you've seen play out, at least politically, on Twitter, for example, right? Like you see everything that people are constantly going against, whether it's the wokeness or the lack of standards and disciplines and all, because you had to give up something, right? And that was one of the big things that was told to me. So like when I went into Iraq in 2003, I didn't come back for 15 months. It was middle of 2004, went back to start drilling again in like late 2005 or late 2004. I went to PODC in Louisiana in 2005. And I just remember from that point on, it was very different from even when I came in 2002 and went right to Korea for an annual training where everyone's doing a fucking drill every day, like taking, holy shit, there's this threat from North Korea that we got to train for every single day. And then it just kind of became down to it morphed into like, man, there's a lot to unpack on that, but it turned into us going in initially and being like, yeah, you'll be home before Christmas in 2003. Okay, we catch Saddam on like what, December 13th of 2003. It's like, okay, we should probably be home for Christmas because what else are we here for? We caught Saddam. No, we'll get extended 4 more times. And then it turns into, well, now we have to establish baselines for rotations. Okay, let's go to 15 months. And then 2005 comes about when the 101st shows up and is like, you know what, fuck everything 3rd ID and 1st Armor Division just did for 2003 and 2004. We're going to do everything completely different and we're going to do it our way and fuck all the relationships they build. And then you lay the groundwork for the surge that created because the insurgency took it to a whole other fucking level. And then you're no longer in an actual invasion posture. You're in a constant state of what do we do next year, the year after that, year after that, and year after that with FORSCOM, right? Because what does FORSCOM do? Plan rotations out 5 years in advance, or right? And when all that took place, you went into this permanent state of the military or the army specifically that I know, is just constantly in a state of deployment. So what happens when you're in a constant state of getting ready for the next thing? You start slacking off on all the other things that you should be doing in a garrison environment, your discipline, your training, all that stuff that you would take advantage of because you didn't know if you would ever actually have to do it. Now you're just like, oh, well, you know, we don't deploy until December. It's fucking June. Let's just chill. Let's take it easy. And that's kind of the mentality and mindset that it took place. It permeated throughout. I remember saying this, like, when I went to PLDC, you know, which is the primary leadership development course, which is now BLC, basic leader course for the Army. I remember thinking like, oh shit, I'm about to learn how to be a sergeant. I'm about to learn some like all like base the leadership, how to be in charge. I didn't learn any of that. I learned how to look up stuff in a book. And now they do it by Control F on a computer. Like this is when they still gave us actual regulations printed out. You had to go find stuff. Now it's Control F. So the standards, the learning how to be a non-commissioned officer, and I don't know, you can probably speak to your units, which is obviously where I would take it. You are only as good as the NCOs. And if you're an officer, you're only as good as the officers you had in your specific section in your unit.
Oh, we had a bunch of shitbags, man.
Okay, well then what do you expect? What do you think's going to come from that then? You know what I mean? Like if your team leader, your squad leader, your platoon sergeant, your first sergeant, your sergeant major, if they're all people that you don't want to be like, what do you think most likely is going to happen?
Oh, it was in the 90s, it was awful. It was toxic as hell. You had people that were there for life who, you know, when you were in the airborne mafia, you weren't going anywhere else because nobody wanted to volunteer for airborne. So everybody stayed. You either were in your unit, or you went to the 82nd, or you went to Italy for 173rd.
Yeah. I went there for annual training once, 3 weeks. That was
nice.
That was fun. Oh yeah, that was fun.
Or Panama. Back then, we had a unit down in Panama. You know, you had these lifers who couldn't function on the outside, and their mission was to make it horrible for everyone else. You had, you know, they were killing time. They wanted to do their time until they could retire, and then they got out. And anybody that was worth a shit was dropping a packet for SF or trying to transfer out. You know, as soon as I got to my first unit, I was like, man, I've got mouth breathing retards over me. I made a critical error here. I'm going to try to reclass as soon as possible. I dropped a 41A7 to go to a critical short MOS, got denied. You know, went to the battalion commander, denied it, said, you know, you're going to have to wait until you go back to the U.S. for this because you got, you know, you're only here for 12 months. Go back to the U.S., drop the same 41A7, and got denied again because 12 Bravo was such a shit MOS that it was always critically understaffed, and nobody would be allowed to get transferred in or out, or rather transferred out.
I know your pain. Yes, I know your pain.
Yeah. So it's you know, back in the 90s, it was a nightmare. These days, I don't know.
Well, so you know, you said you had a unit full of shitbags though, but like, so did you have any good leaders that you remember, or?
Yeah, my very first platoon leader was a stud, absolute stud. He went on to take a very prestigious all army award for. I'm not going to dox myself by saying what he did, but he you know, he left our unit, went to 82nd, took a very prestigious all army award, then went SF and took command of a unit that is name recognized pretty much everywhere. And you know, he was a true stud. I had a squad leader who was another stud, but you know, platoon sergeants were largely garbage. Most of the squad leaders were garbage, you know, and it was being smarter than pretty much everyone in the chain of command except for the officers. It was a horrible thing as a young Joe, because you look at these guys who can't figure out very simple common tasks like, you know, okay, what's the formula for doing road demolition? What's the formula for doing bridge demolition? You know, you go to professional development schools like Sapper Leader course, which is intended for NCOs, and I go there and I'm outscoring everybody but the officers, and I've got no formal higher education, you know, and you know, all my E7s, E6s, E5s, were there, and I'm the only lower enlisted in the class, and I'm doing better than everyone else. It's just very corrosive to my viewpoint, and that caused me problems as well.
Well, that's also that, but that goes back to my point is like, this is in my experience. Like, so I don't get me wrong. Like I've, I'm still doing this stuff from the reserve side. Like I love the Army. Like I loved everything it provided me. I was in a very similar position, from you. It's just, it took me a little longer to join, and it changed my life because of where I was trying to go. I had to realize that the reality wasn't going to end up that way. And so,
I thank God every day I joined the Army, because it taught me a lot of valuable lessons.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Self-reliance, motivation, dealing with the suck. You do a 50-mile road march, and, in shitty conditions, humping a M60 and a Singars, and, that's an experience that not everybody gets to have. But once you've done that, that you can deal with, like, you can deal with inventory at a retail store or something like that.
It's like, this ain't that bad,
Yeah, it's like, okay.
And but that's why I said, like, I've been really lucky. All of my units, prior to getting into, the recruiting world, I always had great leaders. I really did. Like I had great team leaders, I had great squad leaders, I had great platoon sergeants. What
was your MOS?
I originally it was 71 Lima, then I went into 42 Alpha. So I've always done sort of like admin, and then I moved into contracting, and I went to drill sergeant, and I came back to the contracting staff NCOIC world, where it was all like strategic planning. So I didn't do any cool guy shit like you or anything. I just turned into airborne.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't do cool guy shit either. But you're the guy that's responsible for losing leave paperwork.
No, I never did any of that. That was S1 stuff. Like you got to remember how it splits. So it splits into an operations side, which is all your postal shit. So when we went to Iraq, like our whole job was to set up the postal routes and go do fucking convoys and do all that shit. Never dealt with the S1 side of the house, because that world splits. And then they made HR companies in, I want to say, the late 2000s, and they made it completely separate. And they took on the contracting piece, they took on the operations piece, postal piece, all that stuff. So I always did planning and all that silly shit. And I only got all the airborne and the drill sergeant and all that stuff because I didn't really accept being average. I always wanted to kind of go do other stuff. And I found out, because I'm trying to make this about you and not me, but like I've joined specifically for, it sounds dumb. I joined after 9/11, but my buddy got a bonus to go be an 88 Mike. And I was like, well, I don't want to be a truck driver. What else can I do to get a bonus? And my recruiter's like, well, how does computers sound? And I'm like, is it like intelligence? He's like, no, but if you want to do intelligence, you leave in 12 months. And I'm like, well, no, I need to leave now. And I'm like, all right, well, here, you're going to go do something with computers. And what that ended up being is the fucking 71 Lima, which turned into 42 Alpha and all that stuff. So yeah, there's computers involved, but he got me, but I got my bonus. So anyway,
Did you get your Dodge Charger?
Yeah, no, I never did anything dumb like that, but I always volunteered for everything. Like that was my thing. And that came from just my upbringing as well. Like my dad always taught me, fucking just work hard and you'll be fine. So all the stuff that people never wanted to do, I was glad to do it. Go be a gunner for somebody who, because I was the SAW gunner when we went into Iraq, because that was on our MTO. I'm like, yeah, I'll go be a gunner for anybody. Whoever needs a gunner, I'll go do it. Whoever wants to go out on this convoy, I'll go do it. Whoever wants to go do D-main guard and be out on the gate, I'll go do it. Whatever. I would just go do the stuff. And, that's the stuff that gets you noticed, right? So that's why I was able to go to airborne school. That's why I was able to go to drill sergeant school. And when I was there, I was the won all the fucking leadership awards and shit there at that school. And it always kind of set me up and put me into better positions, because I think like that's what people of this generation, I struggle with my own daughter sometimes, is like, you can't just hide in the background. You know what I mean? Like you need to step up, raise your fucking hand when they ask for volunteer. Like, don't be the guy who always is just like, nah, someone else will do it. Fuck that. I always wanted to do it. I wanted to do that shit. And especially when you were downrange, like, why would you want someone else to go put their life on the line when you can actually go do something to help your people? That was my thinking. That was always my thinking. It still is to this day. But I think this generation now really struggles with that, because they're all they've been brought up to be focused inwardly and not outwardly. Like no one does stuff to benefit others. It's all about themselves. And I think that's where we find ourselves into a lot of trouble right now.
Yeah, altruism is very has atrophied culturally. And unless you can get like instant social credit for it, like doing stuff like Mr. Beast does, then these kids don't want to volunteer or do anything. And I battle with that at home with my kids as well. They don't want to do anything. I try to get them to take care of other stuff by giving them pets. Here you've got a cat, you've got a dog. This animal's depending on you, and now it turns into I've got the dog or I've got the cat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and real quick, because I still haven't pointed this out, but the background probably looks a little different than normal because, as I told you, I did just recently move, and the moving company, one of the finest organizations supplied by the Department of Defense to do my move, my last and final move, they lost my canvas that usually has me sipping one of these with my shades on. So that's lost, and the office isn't set up yet. So this will probably be one of the few podcasts that will look like this, and happy to have Louisville Gun doing it for me.
I'm just happy to be here, man. I mean, just being graced with your presence makes me look so much better.
Well, especially with your background, that looks like a sweet Instagram handle is what it looks like.
Well, I can't give away the OnlyFans content for free.
Which you can find if you go on to OnlyFans.com, look up Louisville Gun, you will see him.
Yep, right next to Terry Shaper.
Terry. Yeah. I gotta get Terry back on. He was a fun conversation. I can't believe that's been almost years, man. Like
he's the man.
Yeah. Well, he comes and goes so often. It's just like it's hard to keep up with him because he's never really around for long. He comes on, like post a ton, and then he just disappears again for 6 months. And
you don't know if he's doing Hollywood stuff or real life.
No, and then like you text him and he never responds. And if he does, it's like he'll call you and leave a message at 2 a.m. that's like 4 minutes long. It's like
yeah, usually I just get a pair of testicles or some grandmother's cooch from him. So
all right, so you did the Army, you got out in 94. There's a lot of shit going on politically with that time. And again, like you described, like this was kind of a big time, and I think culturally, because you're talking about Usenet, the internet starting to come about. Why did you get out, and what did you do next?
I was done. I was like, okay, I had a career-ending injury in the Army that killed my chances for dropping a packet for SF.
Was that jump related?
Yeah, I had a jump injury, and once you have a back injury in the Army, you're not going SF. That's all there is to it. So I decided, okay, it's time to go take advantage of the GI Bill and do my thing. Went to college for 4 years, got out, took a job doing computer skills, and managed to parlay that into my OnlyFans, and it's working out for me.
That's good. So yeah, and clearly and this goes into everything that we talked when we first started. Like you've managed whatever it is you do, you in my opinion, you downplay your influential ability, but you clearly have been able to do that. Was it always related to Second Amendment, guns, all that stuff, or is that something you also grew up with, or is this something you picked up during your time in the military and you wanted to continue and you kind of build upon it when you got out, or how'd you find yourself in that world?
Well, that's a good question. I don't, make a big deal of this, but I am Jewish. And I learned very, very early on, I was radicalized very, very early on that nobody's coming to save us. We have to do it ourselves. We had Holocaust survivors in Sunday school coming in, telling us about what, their experiences. I'm like, what the fuck, man? How could evil like this take place in the world? And if God isn't with us, then what are we going to do? And I come from a literal Jewish family where the guns were like, no guns, no self-defense, we're not doing any of that. And meanwhile, I'm like, okay, well, guess what? I paid attention in Sunday school, our entire religion's filled with war stories. I mean, everything about our religion is war and struggle and killing people and barely avoiding disaster. And I was like, okay, well, I better do something. I grew up very patriotic. I was like, okay, I need to give service to this country that's given me so much. Joined the army, 18, got out, and guns were always a thing for me. I've always been a gun guy. Way back in the day, I read Sergeant Rock comics. I used to read The Punisher back when I was 6, 8, 9 years old, and joined the army, got out, was a gun guy then. And back in the early 90s, there was you could do anything. It was the Wild West on the internet. You could find all kinds of shock sites and get involved in anything you want to. It was a good time to network with others, and the whole Second Amendment advocacy really started taking, the modern version of it started taking root in the 90s. You had bulletin boards and websites like the High Road and the Firing Line and stuff like that. And then, the conglomerates didn't exist yet. Facebook wasn't around, Instagram, all that stuff wasn't around. It was all just bulletin boards. And it's only when the conglomerates started taking bigger bites that you started seeing pushback from the anti-gun groups getting any kind of traction. So, I like to say that the anti-gun thing is entirely astroturfed, and there's a lot of anti-gun people out there, but the popularity is astroturfed to hell and gone.
Well, so because I just looked it up, because it rang in my mind when you were talking about it. So you got out in 94. The Brady gun bill was passed in February of 94. So
yep.
Were you in tune with that at the time? Were you
Yep.
aware of when it happened? What made that in your, what brought that about? Because I was too young. I was fucking 13 years old. I don't know why that passed. I didn't even know any of it about it until, the early 2000s about any of it. So what was that like? What was the cause of that? And how did you navigate that?
Well, after the attempted assassination of Reagan,
okay.
James Brady was one of his cabinet officials, and he called around from John Hinckley's 22 caliber revolver. Okay. And he was, basically paralyzed from that. And never let a crisis go to waste.
Right.
Is always the thing.
Yeah.
And Dianne Feinstein and all these people, have been looking for an excuse to pass gun bans. And, when the Reagan assassination attempt happened, they used that to try to push the assault weapons ban. And there was a couple years of discussion before that actually happened. The AWB didn't take place until 94. And they used the Brady bill was, you had, there was a first assault weapons ban in 89 where George W. Bush Sr. Passed that to prevent the import of foreign assault weapons. And then they did the big one back in 94 where they banned the manufacture and production of feature limited or feature based assault weapons.
Is that why I can't buy those really great Polish ARs, like those style? I can't buy those now because of that?
Yeah. That's the reason why Glocks come into the country with those shitty ass plastic sights, is that everything coming into the country has to pass a sporting purposes test. And if it doesn't pass the sporting purposes test, then it doesn't make it in. So you'll see all these weird rifles come in weird configurations, and then they come in and get converted, or they get, the parts of it will come in and it'll get assembled here under 922 with a certain amount of US parts to pass the thing. But it's all a shell game. These guys are just passing regulations that don't fucking do anything, and we as gun buyers and the manufacturers comply with it. Comply with the letter of the law, not the spirit, and we do whatever we want anyhow. So, but yeah, 94, man, I got out of the army, and the assault weapons ban had just passed. And I'm like, man, I want an AR-15. And oh, sorry, the assault weapons ban just passed. You can't, if you want one, it has to be pre-banned. So you're going to pay $1,700. And I've still got my very first AR, which was a fucking Eagle Arms A2 carry handle model. Oh my God, I paid way too much for it back then.
Was it really 17?
Oh yeah.
Back then?
Yeah, holy back
that's
then.
Like $5,000 today, man. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
30 round mags were going for like $100 a piece. And,
oh my
and it was
God.
just craziness.
That's insane.
It was craziness. It was a bad time until 2004. And then the assault weapons ban sunsetted and everything went back to normal.
So what was going on though then? Like, because I think this. You're not an idiot, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's
don't go too far there.
Yeah, but I think you can probably see maybe once I mention it, like where we're going with this is like prior to the Reagan assassination, right? Because you say that's kind of what was the catalyst to bringing this legislation about. I mean, the Second Amendment's been around since obviously the fucking Constitution. We've had some isolated incidents of violence with rifles or whatever. You can go back to what was the fucker's name that did the lighthouse shooting, the former Marine guy, the light tower. No, not the light tower, the tower at the fucking campus. What was that?
Kent State.
Yeah, Kent State. No, Kent State.
The National Guard. It was Charles Whitman.
Whitman, yes. Okay, so we've had some of those things go on, but for the most part, we managed to be a country that could have any type of firearm we wanted without real incidents, right?
It goes back to 1989. 1989, you had the Stockton school shooting where 34 kids and a teacher were mowed down by this fucking nut job with an AK.
Stockton,
then after
California?
that, yeah, in Stockton, California.
I didn't know that.
Wow. Oh yeah, that was like the first big mass shooting in modern history. Then after that, you had Luby's. Luby's, killed like 50 people, or 23 people were killed, I think, and like 50 people total were casualties. And you kept getting these mass shootings, and it would give the anti-gunners ammunition to go after this. But this was before the internet, so it was just newspapers spreading this stuff. And back then, I don't even remember what the makeup of the House and Senate was.
In what, the 80s, late 80s, or
90s?
Well, I think that was when the Democrats definitely had a majority because Clinton got elected, and I think they had the majority, the super majority for the first, at least his first term. It was all Democrats. Yeah, remember the Democrats back then were actually considered reasonable in today's standards. It's like they were
totally.
They're normal people back then.
Yeah, it was after the assault weapons ban. The assault weapons ban was credited with causing the Republican Revolution, where the Republicans took power in Congress for the first time in 40 years.
So that would have probably been 94, I think. Yeah, now I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, because it was all Democratic at that point. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. The Democrats had power to 95, and then 90.
Yeah, it's like 40 years or something.
Yeah. So
that's right.
They got it passed and overstepped their bounds, and that caused them not to have power again for like 10 years or so.
But my point, where I was going with it though, was like, and I know you make a great point about the internet, and then we obviously we can we had cable news invented in the exact CNN and Fox were founded literally months from each other. And if it wasn't CNN and Fox, it was Fox and MSNBC. One of those two networks were like founded in the same
you remember CNN came to fame with the invasion of Iraq.
Yeah. So never mind. You're right. So it was MSNBC and Fox. They both founded the same year. I think it was 94 or 95. Either way, the point is kind of going what you're saying is like without the internet and the cable news cycle to constantly keep people in a state of uproar and outrage about whatever the fuck it is they feel like pushing. It all seems to honestly be like within the last 30 years is where we've gotten to with gun laws and gun legislation and the constant push and I'm tired of it from both sides, because you got a totally inept organization like the NRA who just literally just does nothing but collect fees. And then you got all the people also doing the other stuff where it's just like, yeah, we're going to come and like, listen to fucking Newsom talk out in California. It's like, dude, you're fucking, the state you are in charge of is an absolute fucking joke from a gun rights standpoint. And you still deal with the same shit. It isn't the fucking guns. It's mental health. You have mentally insane people because you don't put them off the fucking streets. And I don't know how true this is. I can't remember who said it. It was very recently, but I can't remember who said it. But it's like, I don't know. Do you know if this is true or not? Because you're a little older. You probably might know. Was Ronald Reagan the one who did away with the fucking mental health facilities? Yeah, actually, was that guy, the vet farmer dude on Twitter. And
Jimmy Carter?
No, vet farmer. He calls him vet farmer, whatever. He said Reagan was the one that
shut down the asylums.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, the state-run asylums, I think, were shut down under Reagan because a bunch of government cutbacks were done back then, where they were trying to shut down a bunch of government benefit programs, and shutting down the state asylums was one of them.
You can't, California is a fine example on a macro level because it's such a massive place with major cities everywhere. You cannot have these people freely roaming the streets of major metropolitan cities and expect anything but the worst outcome. Like, I'm not sure who the fuck made the case to Reagan in that time period, whatever. That was 30 years ago, maybe, if not more. But this is a very obvious cause and effect. It's very obvious. And I said that Terry and I talked about this when he was on the podcast. It's literally almost 2 years ago. Like I said, we talked about when I was growing up, I never saw homeless people. They're fucking everywhere in every state, in every city now.
Now you got homeless advocates saying, no, you can't help them because they want to be on the street.
But they're also like, when you saw the homeless guy go, like the hobo, right? Oh man, that guy he's bad luck. Maybe he's drunk or whatever. Now they're all criminally and violently, mentally insane. They have
here's the thing. The people don't realize that the homeless break down into several distinct groups. Yes, you've got your violent, criminally insane who cannot be helped no matter what, and there will always be a population of them out there. Then you've also got people like I hate to call them the Antifa types, but they're your drug users. There's these kids who go from shooting gallery to shooting gallery. All they want to do is just shoot up, get high, and they're fucking homeless and they're junkies and they live on the street that way. They fall into prostitution, or they eventually OD and die, or they hit bottom, get into rehab somehow and come out of it. Then you've got the people, the vast majority of the homeless, though, are people who have had bad luck and they've hit some kind of event where they've lost their job, they've lost their fucking house, something happened, and they don't have, they are just out on the streets or living in their car or something like that. And unfortunately, the third group is who needs help.
The third group's out of sight, out of mind as well, though.
Yeah.
At least in California. I don't know about Kentucky, but I tell you, in California, it's the first group you described that's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, what you have to do is get, there's been a lot of studies done on this and a lot of research, and it's been found that is way, way less expensive to put all these homeless people into housing than it is to do anything else. If you take an abandoned hotel and you put them all into the hotel.
Man, I already talked about this in California. You got fucking Alcatraz sitting right there, not doing anything but collecting tourist fees. You got an infrastructure already built.
Well, the problem with Alcatraz is you can't get off of Alcatraz to get to a job.
But you're not trying to do that yet, though. Here, you need to rehabilitate these people to the point where they can actually go and hold a job. That's going to take months. And then you can take them off because you'll have the ferries to shuttle them out. And then you bring the next group in. That's
not actually the case, though. And
no, I'm just saying it's possible to be done if you're talking about abandoned places, for example.
The Alcatraz would work for your junkies and for your insane, but it wouldn't work for the people, the transitional people who actually need the help.
Right. Well, and California's got, like, San Francisco has so many, dude, there's so many fucking camps, especially after COVID sprung up, right along the water. he's got these massive
and
cities that were these,
there's so much institutional inertia that prevents rapid solutions from happening. And the best solutions that I've seen are this is actually one of my interests because it ties into crime as well. If you take a hotel or you build a bunch of tiny houses and you have everybody that's homeless in that area that's congregated, you shuttle them into the tiny homes in like a 40-50 tiny home community or a hotel where everybody has a roof over their head, they have access to sanitary facilities, they have an address where they can get bills sent to, or have get mail, which is super important if you want to have a job. You can't fill out a job application without a fucking address. And the people who need treatment, because being on the streets is horrible for your health, regardless. You see if there's bad weather, a homeless person winds up going to the ICU because they got frostbite and lost their feet. ICU stay for a week is like $100,000.
That's fucking insane, dude.
I mean, $100,000 will pay for 5 people living in an apartment, or 5 separate apartments.
Well, plus something like that, it's never going to get paid. You know what I mean? Like, it's just shit. It's fucking insane, man.
So, you're better off housing the people, because if you keep one person out of the ICU for a winter, you've housed, 20 homeless people for a year. You've fed, dozens of homeless people for a year. And, when the homeless people, their interaction with government is, like you said, the psychotics, their interaction with the government is police. Somebody's having a psychotic break and the cops get sent after them. They go to jail. They don't get the help they need in jail. They're being victimized in jail or something like that. They get on their meds in jail, get kicked out of jail and go right back off their meds. They're not able to get into a support program. So we need programs that are nimble and are capable of addressing these problems in a structural way. And unfortunately, you got a bunch of NIMBY fucks who don't want to see tiny homes in their neighborhoods. We're dealing with this right now in Kentucky. There is a great group in Louisville called the Hope Bus. And what they do is they have a bus that they converted, and they go around to the homeless encampments and feed them, and take social workers with them and health workers with them so that people can get treatment and stuff like that. And they got enough money together to build a tiny home village, and homeless people are going to be going through there to get transition. And like we said, you've got the core group.
Put them at the distilleries. They got all kinds of stuff they could do there.
I mean, there's all kinds of jobs that could be done all over the place, though. People that have felony convictions, there's once you have a felony conviction on your record, you're fucked, man, for a lot of normal jobs.
Yeah, it depends what state you're in, though. California, it's not.
Yeah. Oh. Well, like I don't know where you shop for groceries. Do you have a Whole Foods there?
Yeah.
Yeah. You ever hear of famous Dave's bread? I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. His 2/3 of his staff is convicts. That's what he does is puts convicts back to work and tries to get them back into be productive citizens. Richmond, California, man. They found
that's right outside where I lived.
Yeah, Richmond, California did a famous experiment where it generated a lot of outrage because they were you may have heard of it. They were paying felons not to commit crimes. That's how it was broken down to. They're paying criminals not to commit crimes. That's the one sentence abstract of it. But the reality is they had social workers come in and talk to the police. Who are the people out there committing crimes? Because Richmond, California had a horrible homicide rate. And the police were like, well, we're glad you asked. We know exactly who's committing all these crimes because it's 5% of our criminal load is out there gangbanging. Here's their names. And the social workers went to these guys that the police gave them. They're like, what would it take for you to stop slinging crack like Citizen Hush and start being a productive member of society?
Fucking Hush.
And they're like, well, I can't get a job because I don't have a GED. I don't have a driver's license. I never finished school. I don't know where my social security card is. So I can't get a job because I have all these obstacles. And they're like, okay, well, here's what you're going to do. we're going to give you a set of goals. If you get your GED, we're going to pay you $500. Sign up for classes, we'll give you $100. Graduate this or finish this one class, you get another $100. Get your GED, get $500. Get your driver's license, get $200, whatever. And they gave them these goals and they paid them to do these tasks. And lo and behold, these guys went out and they did it, and they cut the homicide rate in Richmond, California by 2/3. And they had such a good result of it that they went from the guys who had massive rap sheets of like 20, 30 pages of arrests to the kids who were just starting to go down that path. And they were able to prevent them from going out. So what happened? The program was deemed to be too expensive. The funding was cut. And the homicide rates went back up.
It's such fucking bullshit, because like what you're describing is like the stuff that most people in this country don't see. Those types of homeless people, because they're everywhere in California. They're everywhere in the cities in California. All right.
Yeah.
And what I really thought when Mayor London Breed came into San Francisco, like she said the right things. Like she seemed to be really legit upset with the way crime was going. Really wanted
that's the thing. It's all talk.
Well, it started out like she was legit about it, because like I said, like when COVID hit, they did a lot to take care of those people. And then like I've said this, they if you look at the recent elections, like the district attorney, the school board, and all, the residents of San Francisco themselves are fed up with the crime and everything that's going on. Like they voted all these people out. Like they're at the point where you got to understand what San Francisco and California, well, especially the Bay Area, is for those who are listening to this. Like, it's a financial trap for a lot of residents. Because where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Once you're there, you can't get out, and there's nowhere cheaper to go, and you're kind of stuck. Unless you really are willing to completely uproot your life and move somewhere else. And that's what everyone's like, well, why don't you just move? Well, you know what? Let's stop with the why don't you just move thing, because this is not that fucking easy, or else people would.
Yeah, the U-Hauls from California to Texas are like $5,000. And Texas to California is like $1,000. It's crazy.
It's ridiculous, right? And so people are dropping that in rent. And that's the thing. Like people don't understand. One of the experiences I'll never forget is when my daughter was with me. She was, she's 17 now. She was probably 13 or 14. I was taking her to her first San Francisco Giants game. Giants fan, grew up it my whole life.
Wait, how do you have a 17-year-old daughter? You're like 30 years old.
I'm 42, bro. What are you talking about?
My dude. No, you just turned like 26.
I just turned 42, man. Look, it's all about bourbon. The more bourbon you drink, the younger you look. These are rules. I don't make them. I just follow them. So anyway, you come off if you ever are in San Francisco and you take the Bay Bridge, I-80 into San Francisco, you will come off on exit 2C, and exit 2C will bring you eventually into Oracle Park, where the San Francisco Giants play. What it's going to do is bring you under an underpass, and what you're going to see is this area that's been kind of congregated and populated by the homeless and the druggies. And across the street from that, you'll see, if you bring up Zillow, $4,500 a month apartments. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, we're there. This is like 2018. Sitting at a red light. Homeless people off to the left. I'm just like, well, she's a kid. Of course she's going to look, because all kids are curious. And probably 15 feet from us, dude, is this guy who just takes a squat, pulls out a needle, and just starts shooting heroin. I'm just like, well, what the fuck? I can't do anything about it. She's sitting there staring, watching it happen. But like I said, the juxtaposition of that, especially in the city of San Francisco and every major city in California, because they're all like this, especially I've never seen more violent homeless people than in the city of Sacramento, and literally on P&L streets, literally right outside the governor's mansion, which is why every time Newsom tweets about some bullshit, I'm just like, does your dumbass even go outside of your fucking mansion and look around at your fucking streets decaying right in front of you? Because those people are everywhere in Sacramento. They are violently mentally ill all over Sacramento, especially downtown.
That's the problem, man. There's no accountability.
No, there isn't. But then they sit there and constantly fucking Newsom constantly is fucking going after the state of Florida and DeSantis over whatever fucking issue he feels like attacking him about. And it's like, dude, why don't you just, for 1 second, could any of these major politicians just look inward and say, I'm going to fucking fix this? But no, they don't. And it's so tiring to actual residents because it's like the ones that are just bought into like, oh, I'm just going to constantly vote Democrat because, yay, I'm in California. Or the ones who actually are paying a fucking attention, but they're so outnumbered and they're just tired of it. And they're like, dude, can you just for 1 second stop campaigning for your next job and just look around the fucking office you reside in? Because that's how bad it is in Sacramento, man.
You've got this core group of Democratic voters, man, who are completely shielded from reality. When COVID lockdowns hit, they're like, yeah, I get to work from home.
Not. That's the thing, though. That's what I'm saying about San Francisco. They're not. It's right across the street. There's areas.
They don't give a shit about that, man. They did.
It's right out. They're right out. They're look at the shit with Pelosi's husband. Like that area is all overrun, and they're fucking $10,000 a month places. They're multi-million-dollar houses, and it's all overrun with mentally ill. I know, but that's the thing. They can't because Republicans haven't done a fucking thing in that city since '67. So who are you going to blame?
They don't. Dude, it's cognitive dissonance.
They get fired up, man.
They can't take responsibility for their fucking policies.
It's so
they completely they just ignore everything. If you've ever, this social media like Facebook and Reddit and everything like that has created narcissists and a generation of mentally ill activists who are just incredibly toxic. These people have been brainwashed into thinking Republicans or conservatives are evil, Christians are evil, and anything left wing is good. Anything that is.
But at some point, don't you think when it's staring you in your face, you kind of like, maybe I should think differently?
No, they don't. These people are completely shielded from reality. These are tech workers who.
Those people are just. This is a foreign. It's foreign, and that's I wanted to get into that with you as well. We'll do that next, but go ahead, make your point.
I mean, these people are like database maintainers and computer janitors who, when lockdowns hit, they got to stay at home in their pajamas and order DoorDash for 2 years, and they did not see any kind of significant financial hit. They're like, great, I don't have to pay for gas. That gives me more money to buy shit on Amazon. Oh, look, the store that was here in my hometown for 20 years closed up. Big deal. I can order it off Amazon. I can get DoorDash. I can get. I don't need to build a relationship because I've got Grindr or Tinder or whatever. and everything has become that we've just completely destroyed society thanks to social media and apps. And these people
is this what you saw taking place in the 90s when you were on Usenet yelling at your fucking local whatever?
Since Facebook took power, man, I've watched. I despair for my kids. I mean, you said you got a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah.
I feel, I've got a girl who's in her early 20s, and I've done everything I can to shield her from the degeneracy that's going on out there. And I've tried to raise her to be proud of herself and not be a punching bag for dudes and not devalue herself. But I look at stuff like I tell this to anybody who listens. Pornography, the easy availability of pornography has so destroyed young people today, where they think that pornography is the norm, and you've got these little girls just whoring themselves out for nothing. You've got women have been marketed into sex objects from such an early age, and they think that's normal. They think that this abusive, disgusting, degrading pornography is how a normal sex life is, and it's not. And boys have this unrealistic expectation, girls have unrealistic expectations, and it's just so fucking bad.
Yeah.
I'm not Christian, but I can understand where the Crusades came from after seeing how society is gone downhill.
Well, I mean, it all repeats itself, right? We're just maybe we're just the next cycle, just we're gonna live through it. Look at people need to understand, like, just the Crusades they weren't a year or two.
Yeah, generations.
Exactly.
And and the Christians didn't decide, oh, you know what? One day we're going to go invade the Middle East for shits and giggles. You know, it happened after centuries and decades of getting their shit pushed in by invaders.
Yeah.
And you know, we are seeing ugly shit happen on the southern border. We're seeing our culture be destroyed from all sides. We're seeing just horrible, horrible stuff happen. And I feel really bad for kids right now.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I do too. And you know, if I'm cognizant enough to remember, but I wanted to go back because you mentioned something that I've been thinking about a lot when it came to all the issues that go on with our favorite website, which is Twitter, right? First question, what has been your take and your opinion on when Elon Musk took over and your experience since then, or do you have any thoughts on that whole process taking place?
Well, Elon must be doing something right with the number of meltdowns that have taken place.
Yeah, you can always count that.
Yeah, I'm a data driven guy. I like metrics, and somebody turned me on about a year or two ago to a website called Social Blade, where I could measure my followers, you know, on a daily basis. I'm not willing to pay for the service that lets you see it on a 30-day or month to month basis, but it lets me, you know, every once in a while I click on it and see what my followers look like. And somehow I've managed to accumulate 17,000 followers. I have no idea why.
You're doing
well, you know, in a couple years back, you know, I was only at like 1 or 2,000 followers, and I found that, you know, my first big bump in followers came when I dragged that Grandmaster Jay from the Not Fucking Around Coalition when he had you know, they came to town and 3 of his people got shot, and because one of the dudes locked his knees in formation and dropped his firearm, and 3 people got hit.
What the fuck?
Oh yeah, so
what is this?
Breonna Taylor, you know, got killed.
Yeah,
and the
Not that was obviously in Louisville. Yeah.
Yeah, and Not Fucking Around Coalition was marching in Stone Mountain to protest it, and then they came to Louisville. And you know, you know the thing. I mean, as a drill sergeant and being in the Army, don't lock your fucking knees, or else you're gonna pass out.
Yeah, you're gonna lose blood supply, and then you're gonna pass out.
Yeah. Well, some dude locked his knees in formation at their Louisville march, and he dropped like a rock, and they weren't practicing proper weapon safety. And when he hit the ground, his shotgun went off, and 3 people got wounded.
Shotgun went. Holy fuck.
Yeah, and Grandmaster Jay, you know, did a little video message saying, "Oh, it was his rifle went off because it hit the ground. It was a slam fire." You know, and he holds up his Bushmaster AR and locked the bolt to the rear, hit the you know, smacked it on the table, and the bolt went into, or the bolt carrier group went into battery. He's like, look, the weapon just went off. And it's like, no, that's not how it worked. And I did a react video to that of, yeah, this isn't what happens. And no, a Bushmaster AR is not a bullpup, and you're a fucking moron. And that gave me like 2,000 followers. And typically whenever I do like some drag video or some super funny video, all of a sudden I'll see a spike in like 1,000 followers or 500.
You know why? Wait, I don't think you maybe it's because you're doing what comes natural to you, right? But you got to understand, and I've learned this. The stuff you take as what comes natural to you, or things that you just spout off, you got to understand that the majority of our population, especially, they don't even think that way. And they would, and if they do, there's another huge population that would never even do it. And that's why you got 17,000 followers, because you're saying the things that they want to, they don't have no idea how to, or they have no concept of the actions to do it. And that's where, like, that's why I say, like, look at this, man. Like, look at all of the people, look, like, really break it down. Like, we have there's a huge goon thing or whatever people want to fucking call it, but start to narrow it down, right? We're a bunch of narrowcasters. We do a lot of shit that there's a lot of accounts we could point to who have a pretty good amount of following, right? But it's all because they've done 1, 2, 3 singular things that really caught on, like yourself, like Brink with the funeral with his fucking grandfather. Like all these things that like Demp used to, like Demp got huge off of one account. Now he's building another one off. Like just look at what our population has done. And it's because it's based in reality. It's fucking real. And it's actually stuff that people say and think every single day, but they don't know how to do it or translate it to online. And you're doing that. And that's why you're fucking popular and influential, whether you don't like the word influential or not.
But well, that's the thing, though, man. Is that, you know, when before Elon bought the platform, you know, I was like, okay, why is nobody seeing my shit? You know, why am I not getting any interaction on this stuff or anything at all? And like I said, I was checking out the Social Blade, and I'd see that, you know, I would have 1 follower or 2 followers, or I would have negative followers. I'd be losing followers left and right. And apparently, you know, based on the Twitter files, there were these secret flags that would get applied to your profile, and you would just have your reach turned off.
So weird, isn't that weird? Like, I don't know. How do you even do that? Like, I don't fucking know enough about any of that shit to know even how you do that, but that is pretty cool.
Yeah, apparently, if you get on the wrong radar, influential accounts will reach out to Twitter and have you turned off. And I'm guessing that's what happened to me, because I went from, you know, gaining 44, 50, 80, 100 followers a day to having like 1 follower a day or negative followers every day. And that was going on for a year plus. And nobody would see my posts. Nobody would see anything I did.
Yeah, you know? I've seen that. Like, I don't do much. Like, I go back and forth. Like, there's times where I'll say like the dumbest thing, and it'll get, you know, 70, 80 likes for whatever. But then like there's weeks where I'll go like I'm doing stuff that I know in the past would bring in a lot of attention or traction, and it gets like 1 like.
Yeah, like I would do like movie redubs or edits or something like that. Like
yeah, you were doing that shit for a while. That was awesome, man.
Yeah, like 2 years ago was the Demp versus Terry.
Yeah, oh god, us.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that was 2 years ago. But
I know, and that's when we ran into our fake fucking Jack's ghost bullshit.
Yeah, and you know, that I would get like huge traffic off of that. And then I would drop stuff like Taco Tuesday, and nothing would, you know, where I recut Act of Valor, you know, where remember the scene in Act of Valor where the Swift Boat team comes in with the miniguns or just blasting the cartel. I recut that as like a Taco Tuesday thing where the Swift Boats are firing like plates of appetizers and tacos and stuff like that. And that would get like no traction whatsoever. Nobody would see it. I'm like, man, this is funny as hell. What the fuck?
I know, yeah, exactly. Or especially when you got other people that you know, like big accounts are retweeting it and it's still not bringing people in. There's something weird.
Yeah, I think they measure part of it as being hostility to other accounts. Like I tend to just to talk shit to the wrong people, and I notice my engagement falls off. But people like Lafayette Lee, who is a pro follow, Javier pro follow, and they have super big followings. But you know, like our boy Rob Province, Educated Floof, you know, he's lost how many accounts now? He gets up to 30,000 accounts.
He still builds them back like almost instantly. Like the dude's a fucking legend, man. Like he got my highest rated between the YouTube and the actual like digital version of the podcast. That dude must have pulled in like 15,000 views and listens. It's fucking incredible.
He's a good dude, man.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy. I love him.
Yeah, I love talking to him. I love that guy. He's and you know, plus he had sex with like Eric Garland's wife, so that's awesome.
Was he I remember that being a thing. Hey, check this out, Buffalo Trace. We're gonna go to that next. No, so that's what I wanted to follow it up with, because we talked about the Elon thing, but you know, one of the things that came out of the Twitter files, right? And this was my big thing from it, is like, you had all these people, these engineers, these people you described to, especially during the lockdown, were just sitting up in their fucking basement. But most of these software engineers they're not Americans, right? So they come from other countries who the concept of freedom of speech,
it's maybe it's not a foreign concept in that it's spelled out in that nation's constitution, but for the most part, from where you and I glean the freedom of speech means, it's a foreign fucking concept. And you put these people in charge of moderating content on a website in a country that is supposed to be freedom of speech, right? And so
See, I don't think these
what do you think about that?
I don't think the H-1Bs are out there moderating content. I think the H-1Bs are out there doing the server engineering, the hardware maintenance, the software maintenance, stuff like that. The moderating itself is done by the shitlibs. Guys that are super activist, left-wing guys who are, during the daytime, they're a Twitter safety council member, and at nighttime they put on their Antifa mask and burn down a fucking Starbucks. That's who these people are. You got to understand that in the corporate world, you've got these subdivisions that have different responsibilities. And what Elon did was he came in and he fired 75% of the dead weight, and he got rid of,
was it that much?
He got rid of
you think it was that much?
Oh yeah. I mean, in Google, and I mean, there's been a wave of tech layoffs lately.
But where are they going? Because
I don't care. Fuck them. That's these people. These people have I have no sympathy for these people, because these people have no sympathy for us. These people have made it clear in no uncertain terms that if you are conservative in the slightest, they hope you die. If you didn't get the vax, they wanted you to die horribly of COVID. They wanted your business to go under. They wanted your religious institution to close. They wanted you to starve to death. Or what Sam Hyde say? They want you bankrupt, starving, your children raped. They want you dead, and they think it's funny. And these people have no sympathy for us. You talk to them in any situation other than Reddit, they're like, flyover people are dumb. If you had any sense at all, you'd move out of the country and move to the cities, all this other stuff. And they are just indoctrinated and brainwashed. And I have no sympathy for them getting laid off. How many fucking TikTok videos did you see? Oh, here's my morning. I got up today and I went and I had a smoothie. And then I meditated for 2 hours. And then I had a high colonic at lunch. And then I had my intestines flushed and we went to yoga and Pilates. Then I composed a couple of emails about DIE or diversity or
DEI.
whatever.
Yeah, DEI. Right, yeah.
Then I went and I smashed a Starbucks, and then I committed tax fraud. It's these people, they've been living in a bubble. They've told us that, oh, well, you've got a trades job, you're a fucking idiot. Oh, you live in the country, tough shit. You're backwards, redneck, uneducated. Oh, you have a religion, you're fucking superstitious, rube, unlike us educated people who live on the coasts, and you deserve anything that happens to you. So I've got no sympathy for these people. They made the rules; they get to live by them. Oh, you got laid off. Learned how to do HVAC.
Learn how to code. Yeah, learn how to code HVAC. But you know what? This is my thing, because this ties into a lot of the stuff I said earlier. Right? We talk about altruism and how it's fallen by the wayside. Now we're talking about, because I'm one of the most patriotic people you'll ever find, and I'm sure you are as well. We're obviously very prideful people. Very prideful people. And I don't want division in my country. I really don't. Like I don't want that. I don't want this mentality amongst citizenry. I want, the best form of unity that we can find, which I know it's more of a pipe dream than anything, but how do you think we get back to some sort of unity? Because the last time we had an event that unified this country, it unfortunately led to something that I think we've all already dissected and spoken our opinions on. But 9/11 was unfortunately the last time that this country had a moment of unification. So outside of, the COVID stuff didn't happen. Like,
there were many people who thought that might be something that would bring people together. That clearly didn't happen. But how do you think we get back to something that can unify and unite this country? And
I mean, 9/11 was 22 years ago, man. That's an entire,
right? Isn't that
that's an
fucking
entire
insane?
generation.
Dude, it was like, yes, it's still like yesterday to me. It really is.
Oh yeah,
I
remember
yesterday. I remember driving up and down the streets in Orlando and seeing all these fucking people out with American flags, and like it was nuts, dude. And you know it, you lived it as well. But
yeah, I mean, here's the thing, though: you've had an entire generation indoctrinated since then, and unless we purge the teachers in the public school system and get some sort of social studies and citizenship and pride in country going on, instead of this hatefulness where America is evil, America is racist, everything about America is bad, socialism is great, death to capitalism. And that's another thing, is you've got these people making $120,000, $150,000 a year as tech jobs, say capitalism's evil. These people have no fucking sense.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
There's no way to overcome that unless we smash the indoctrination program that's going on in our schools. You have kids going to higher learning. Every year you hear about how teachers need more money, how school systems need more money, and every year the standards of education get further and lower and lower and lower, where kids are graduating unable to read. They go to college now and they need remedial courses in order to just do fucking basic English. It's a problem with our education system, and they're being taught instead of.
Why do you because you're not the first person to say that, but I mean, how did we get to that point from 9/11?
We let activists into the education system. We let people, these people, if you don't have control of the school boards, you don't have control over who is teaching your kids. If you don't have control of who's teaching your kids, you have people that go to college to learn to be activists. And then as activists, they go into the classroom as activists to indoctrinate kids into becoming more activists. You got kids like David Hogg, who is completely fucking.
That's weird. I haven't seen that fucker pop up in months.
I saw him posting. He's posting today. How does a guy? I'm sure he is,
but like since Musk has taken over, I have not seen that fucking dude's feed anywhere.
Oh yeah,
maybe I'm kind of liking it because he doesn't deserve attention. He's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, but the dude got 1,200 on his SATs, right?
So did I. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, but the problem is he got rejected from every school he applied to.
He got into Harvard because he
got into Harvard.
Unfortunate situation, right? Okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is you've got the intellectual quote elites going into these higher education programs, but they're not learning anything. They're just becoming activists. You've got everything has been subjugated by politics. Everything is politics now.
So what fixes it then? Why don't we let's give me your radical ideas on what fixes it, because we can sit here and we can bitch about everything forever because it's easy.
Realistically, we're not going to fix it. I mean, we don't have what it takes to fix it. We're not going to purge the leftists from the classroom. DeSantis is doing what he can. But he's only one person in one state, and when they've captured media, news, they've captured entertainment, they've captured the corporate world, they've captured sports, they've captured everything. What do we have on the right? Nothing.
Do we still have talk radio? I stopped listening years ago.
I mean, talk radio isn't an influence. We're not boomers. Yeah, video games are left wing as fuck these days. And these people don't even realize that these people don't even realize that they're being manipulated. One of the big things right now is Dead Space got remade, a video game that's a space horror, and there's graffiti in the spaceship on Dead Space where it's like, oh, this capitalist system sucks, and they don't realize that this is a game from a billionaire corporation making billions of dollars. It's just fucking kabuki.
Well, why do you think that? But I mean, because it clearly works though. So what do you like? That's what I'm saying. Like, you're talking about purging the left from classrooms, which we aren't going to do, but
it's not going to happen. But
but we've got to. We need some sort of plan of action. We can't just continue to just be like, fuck it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though, is that short of some kind of calamitous event, we're pretty much doomed as a country if we keep going on this course. China controls our major Hollywood stuff. Marvel. What's the biggest Hollywood corporations that you can think of? Disney, right?
Yeah.
Disney is the big monster. Yeah, and Disney is too afraid of China to do anything that would anger them. All the Marvel movies are not going to anger China because they can't get up on it.
Don't you remember the 80s when we used to like overtly provoke Russia? Like, fuck you. We're going to fucking make all of our movies about beating you.
Yeah, that was the 80s. Now,
what the fuck happened? What happened? It's the same China people.
Yeah, I mean, they remade Red Dawn, and instead of it being
it was North Korea, right?
Yeah, they changed it from China to North Korea as the villain. Like North Korea is going to invade fucking Colorado.
It'd be a lot cooler if they did.
Yeah, it would be.
Give Fourth ID something to do besides sit there in the mountains.
Pretty soon we're going to hit a tipping point. I mean, I think if you ask me what my fear is right now, just like Russia got froggy with Ukraine as soon as Biden got elected, China, in my opinion, is biding their time. And when China sees its opportunity to strike, they're going to go after Taiwan, and they're going to take us out of the equation because we're weak and we're wide open to vulnerabilities. You keep seeing how power stations are getting shot up and sabotaged. We are wide open to an attack like that. And if you
so is everybody else.
Yeah, but
I mean, like, go back to World War II. Like, we had entire units of it. Look at the guys that were like, people forget about the Band of Brothers, but what did they do after that? You had those guys that were, their entire mission was to go behind Chinese enemy lines and blow up fucking infrastructure and railroad lines. Like,
yeah, but I mean, 200.
People need to stop pretending that we don't have an offense ourselves. We do. We still have it. I'm with you on your concerns, but at the same time, we can still do a lot of shit.
Oh yeah, we could totally, we could kill off 75% of China, no big deal. The problem is that still leaves 250 million Chinese. You kill off 70.
It doesn't mean they want to fight. Like,
they don't care. That's the thing. They don't give a shit. I mean, these people,
China, not, but the actual human does. Like, people need to realize that
China welded their people in. They welded people into their apartments, my brother.
Oh no, people, I know that, but you think those are the same people welded in their apartments that are go out and go fight for that? No, they're not going to fight for that. Why would they fight for that?
They don't need to. Here's what China's doing right now. China right now is building up power bases in Africa. They're building economic partnerships in Africa where they're going in, developing infrastructure like power plants and electrical grids and waterways and stuff like that, and ports. And they set up debt traps. And when the government in Africa, it's typically a kleptocracy with the officials stealing as much as they can. And when they default on these ports or power plants, then China's like, okay, we own this. Now all the payments come to us. And all the mining comes to us. And they're out there collecting the raw materials, and they're out there collecting the resources, and they're doing agriculture, they're doing living spaces and everything else. They are colonizing Africa right now because Africa is ripe for it.
Yeah, but we've been in Africa forever. We've got permanent.
Yeah, but we're not. I mean, you don't see fucking Ford over there building plants in Africa. Norinco is over there building plants in Africa, and when China gets froggy about Taiwan, I'm worried that they're just going to fucking sabotage us, take us out of the equation, and we don't have a capability to do anything. I mean, look at how divided this country is over.
Well, at least I know Ford is in South Africa. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, look, I get it. I'm 100% with you on the worst possible thing. I just want people to understand, because I try to put this out whenever we do stuff like this.
I'm not into the doom and gloom on everything. I know there's plenty of doom, but you got to understand, like, if others could, they would, right? It's one of the great lines from fucking The Departed. If you coulda, you woulda. Because people, if they could, they would. China hasn't, Russia hasn't, like none of these fucking people have. Like, you're looking at whether you believe the whole thing going on with Russia and Ukraine or not, you know, and that's another conversation. But Russia's not doing a fucking thing with a country like literally a third, if not less than that, the size of it. And
yeah,
over
because because everybody's teamed up. I mean, Russia,
bro, it still comes down to like, if you got someone who's going to die and the other person has someone's going to die. That's it. Don't try and sell me on the fucking it's us giving them shit. It's not. Russia. If Russia wants to take Ukraine, they will, but they're going to lose everything that they actually want, and that's why they haven't done the ultimate fucking act of actually accomplishing that, because they want the resources. My point is, people have this fear, and it's permeated through the internet of like, oh my God, China. Oh my God. Like, yeah, China's a big fucking country. They have a lot of people that they're willing to expel, but we're pretty fucking incapable, or we're pretty fucking capable with a lot of things. And people need to realize that. Like, you can point to a lot of the things that you don't like about how we're doing stuff. You can point to the government, you can point to the president, you can point to some woke policies in the military, but at the end of the day, you still got a lot of fucking men and women who can enact violence in a very, very, very fucking concentrated and powerful way. And most of the world can't do that shit.
Yeah, I'm not saying
I'm not worried about
invade.
losing the fucking, you know what? You want to know, this is the thing that I learned this when I first came in, and maybe you know this, because it probably would have started developing a lot post Gulf War, is, you know, people get caught up in like the numbers game when it comes to the size of a military, like what they can do in the first 2 weeks. Because that's like, you know this, you were in Korea. You train for the first 2 weeks, right? Because, you know, if North Korea invades, then what happens then? Well, then you got to resupply. Then you got to do all that shit. Well, who can do that better than us? Who's got all the countries and contractors and these corporations embedded in with our fucking military to actually resupply, do logistics, do all those things? And that's what wins the fucking wars. That's what wins all this stuff.
Yeah, but that's the
thing. And those other countries don't have it. They really don't.
Yeah, I'm not saying that China's going to invade the U.S. That's an entirely different kettle of fish. That's not a scenario I'm envisioning. What I'm envisioning is China, you know, causing as much mayhem as possible in a plausible deniability thing. Look at COVID.
Don't you think COVID fucks them just as much though, because they're so dependent on external purchasing of their fucking goods. Like, but everything they do affects them. They're not insulated by anything.
They don't. What do they care more about? I mean, what's their long-term goal? Their long-term goal.
That's hard because they do 100-year plans, right? Like, they don't.
Yeah, their long-term goal though is world domination.
Yeah,
and they don't care if we're a client state that buys from them, or they would prefer that we're a vassal state that's slaves to them.
But they're also banking on them being able to accomplish that goal without fucking conflict and blood. And when has that ever happened in history? Never.
I mean, that's the thing though, is that if they don't have to have direct conflict with us, if they can move in and take our resources and stuff like that, they're just as fine with that.
I don't know. I just don't see how how do they pull that off? Like, I think we give China way too much fucking credit. I really do. And maybe it's because of stuff that I've just seen, like, but I'm not breaking any groundbreaking stories here. I just think, like, you know, China's, they got a lot of people, but at the end of the day, like, we're overvaluing their capabilities. And I say that more so because when have they last tested them? Fucking Korea. That was 70 years ago, man. They have no idea what the fuck they're doing in a real life conflict.
Yeah, but they don't have to have a real life conflict.
Yes, you do. You can't just pretend that because you have numbers, you're some sort of influence. You have to be able to have tested and actually be able to use those capabilities. This is not just to you. This is just the people in general who will be like, oh my God, China. It's like, okay, what has China done and proven that they can actually carry out this fucking doomsday scenario? That's what I'm saying.
I mean, they've got Tibet. They've got
okay.
They're here's the thing.
Tibet is their Crimea. Like, it's this, like, that's why I wish people would realize, like, you know what? The world existed before we decided to draw borders and play with. Like,
Taiwan is going to be the big thing when they start deciding we want Taiwan. how, what's our obstacle?
What did Biden already say? Biden already said we'd defend that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Last year,
how,
like back in the summer, he said that.
How do they take us off the board for that?
No, well, I think it's very easy. I think you continue to play this mission creep game with Ukraine and Russia, and then
yeah, I mean, we're bleeding off our javelins, we're bleeding off all of our war stock for Ukraine right now. So when that hits a certain point, they already hit us with COVID as a biological weapon. What happens when another couple COVIDs come out that are more lethal and they come over to the US? And then at the same time, you've got, we've for decades, you've had Chinese nationals in the US acting as spies, from Eric Swalwell's girlfriend, Feng Feng.
Yeah, seriously.
To students at national research labs at every university. And you've got the Confucius Institute at multiple major universities acting to subvert various higher learning. It's not a single facet plan. It's a multifaceted plan across the spectrum, and they will take advantage of everything that we have. You think there aren't Chinese nationals here in the US right now who could drive around to,
the only thing I don't discount anything you say, man. Like, I really do. I think you're a very bright, insightful guy. I think you have great insight into what you're saying, but you got to understand, like, people keep saying stuff like you're saying and assuming that we don't do the same fucking thing.
Dude, we may have sleeper agents in China, but I guarantee you it's not anywhere near on the level that China has here. Guarantee you.
How do you guarantee that?
Because we've got Chinese students at every university stealing research and IP.
Yeah, okay.
We don't have American students over in China stealing research.
Don't know that, though. That's my thing. Like, we don't know that. We don't.
I mean, Chinese society is completely different from ours. Hell, we had a bunch of Chinese agents over there, and we got penetrated, and the Chinese agents started getting rolled up. That was a big counterintelligence problem years ago.
Like, people need to realize that at one point in time, was it 220? Yeah, like literally 35 years ago, people felt this exact same way about us with Russia. And what happened?
Yeah, we outspent Russia and bankrupted them.
And we can do the same exact fucking thing to China, because all you got to do is pull the production plug. That China gets everything that they have financially because we allow it. That's it. It's all outsourced. Like, you trying to tell me we can't produce the shit that we get from China? You have so many major corporations like Apple right now, as an example, that are moving their production facilities back to the United States. What do you think that's going to do to to the infrastructure of China and the economy? I mean, Apple's not a small, it's not like your local fucking mom and pop store. That's multi-billions of dollars every year. Like, that's a big thing. But that's a big thing in strategic interest.
Yeah, but there's also Huawei or whatever it is. They're telecom people, and it's not just Apple, man. You've got Nike, you've got all these shoe things, you've got. I mean, how many of the parts and everything is made in China these days?
I get. Trust me, that's been my biggest issue for fucking years. Like, I'm with you. I'm only trying to play devil's advocate here because I don't want people to just totally forget about their own country's capabilities. Like, we're not fucking Malawi in Africa where we don't do anything. We're still the United States of America, and if we want to do stuff, we can. We can.
Oh yeah.
And that's
just how do you strike back against stuff that's got plausible deniability? If somebody,
do it yourself, man. Like, play the fucking game. Like, you can't just assume that we don't get to do anything back. That's what I'm trying to get people to understand again, because I'm with you. Like, I don't want you to think like this is like, oh my God, fucking Eric's just, no, I'm not. I'm just pushing back at the overall narrative. Like, people are just assuming that the United States can't and doesn't do anything to enact in its own best interest anymore. Like,
100%. Here's the thing though. All right, let's take an example from relatively recent history. You remember the Beltway shooters?
Oh yeah. The sniper.
Yeah, two relatively untrained dudes,
right?
Yeah, driving around in a hoopty.
Before 9/11. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, paralyzed the entire East Coast for weeks, just taking pot shots at folks.
Yeah.
This was such a big deal that people in my industry were getting calls from ATF Joint Task Force trying to narrow the shit down. That was just two dudes in a hoopty taking pot shots. Nowadays you've got, when you've got guys that are shooting up power stations, you've got people that are, doing various things. We are a wide open society, and we are vulnerable in so many ways that people just don't realize. And if there was a concerted effort, you say, we've got these capabilities ourselves. The question is, if we don't know who's carrying out these acts, how do you strike back against it?
I would push back immediately with like, it's the usual fucking suspects, man. Like, it's not some fucking.
Okay, but let's say you've got an Iranian, you've got like 5 or 10 Iranians running around shooting at power stations in a tri-state area, and somewhere else you've got 5 or 10 Chinese agents shooting at power stations in another area, and then you've got some militants of whatever faction carrying out sniper attacks across the U.S., and you've got asymmetric warfare going on within the continental U.S.
Never gonna stop, but you act. But my point is because it's not broadcast, you assume it's not taking place in all those locations you just said. That's what I want people to understand. Is like the United States of America is not in a permanent state of just reaction. Like, we're not. We just aren't.
Of course not.
At any level, we're not. We are still very proactive and still involved in all the things that you're saying. And I get it. Like, I understand 100% where you're coming from, because you don't want to see that, right? You don't want to see other people doing stuff, but that's the fucking way of the world. Like, everyone's doing something to undermine the other, regardless of whether we have positive relationships or not. But don't think that we're not doing our own. That's my only thing. Like, don't think we're not, and don't assume we're not, because
we've probably got people over in Iran.
We wouldn't fucking be here because someone would have already taken over, and they're not.
We've probably got people in Iran right now helping foment the attempt at a revolution going on. We've probably got people over, in various other places causing mischief and mayhem going on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, again, you asked me, how do we get back from where we're at? Short of some major event that causes a drastic societal shift, I don't see how it's going to happen. And
you think we have the society for that?
I think if we as Americans got pissed off enough, then we could. But the problem is, because we're not far removed from the same people who used to take severed heads and put them on fucking sticks.
Yeah, that's true. Like, people need to realize that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. I mean, the default state is not peace. The default state is.
I mean, was it Locke or Hobbes who talked about the state of nature? It's like, it's real short, and it's short, brutish, and just you're gonna die. Like, that's the state of nature of man without society. Maybe it was Hobbes. I don't know. It was one of those fucking people. But the only thing I would ask you to follow up on that is, because I think the biggest issue we've got, and I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, we are such a large nation. We're getting close to 350 million people. And when it comes to the military, we're not getting bigger, whether people think we are or not. We're not. The budget may be growing, but we're still about 500,000 active duty forces in terms of the Army, maybe close to 2.2 million worldwide with all the branches and reserves accounted for, but that's a small portion of the population. And I bring that up only to say, like, do you think, with the fact that we are at an all voluntary force and the actual disparity in terms of those people willing to do it, you describe someone like yourself who needed to just change his fucking home life. And that's probably a lot of people who join the military. But you take those people, the ones that make up the total force, you juxtapose that with the population, and it's pretty blatantly obvious that whatever is going on with our military doesn't affect the average American anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So if it doesn't, how do you get a population to give a shit?
I don't think it's possible. I mean, people are so insulated from the all volunteer military. I mean, people have, you've got the glitter class, the intellectual class who thinks that the military is filled with dregs of society, or they still labor under the illusion that it's filled with people who are like, join the army or go to jail, when in reality,
go to war or go to
when reality is the army's mostly middle class folks from decent educational upbringing, but it's so insulated that people just don't give a shit anymore. Even with like what's coming out of Ukraine, where you've got combat footage coming out, folks were largely shielded from that with Afghanistan and Iraq. You didn't see GoPro vids of dudes clearing houses in Iraq. You don't see the kind of stuff that we see going on right now in Ukraine. And I don't know, man. I don't think anybody will give a shit about it until it becomes personal to them. I don't want to see us draft people again, because God, that'd be a fucking nightmare. But I think we need to overhaul the schooling so that public service is
what's easier, drafting people into the military or overhauling the school system? These are both untenable
drafting. Right? I mean, drafting people into the military, you get the absolute worst. And overhaul, if you can overhaul public schools so that there's a mandate to teach civics and stuff like that, and you get them young. Where you teach. I mean, you look at Japan. How does Japan do it? They teach these kids at 3 years old that team building and cleaning up after yourself and being responsible and being kind to others is a virtue. And it builds on that for their entire lives. And then, you've got a high trust society.
Isn't that hard to like fathom though, considering, World War II wasn't that long ago?
Yeah, well, I mean, we had to nuke them for that to take
that's what's so fucking it's incredible to me, because we talk about Taiwan, we talk about China, Japan, and all, and like being friends with individuals who are in that global manufacturing space, and you just see like the absolute complete difference between a Taiwan's manufacturing company and ours, and it's like it's night and day, man. Like they're so far ahead.
Yeah,
because it's a sense of pride that we don't have. And how do you build that? How do you get that back?
I mean, it's going to take. You have to indoctrinate kids in it at a young age. If you don't, then it's over. If you've got people who are more obsessed with clout and TikTok and getting their money from OnlyFans, then that's what you get.
Which is what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I have to cater to a certain geriatric
guns and toes, bro. Guns and toes.
Yeah, certain older ladies with disposable income, they pay a pretty penny for me. That young. Yeah, certain young men, I'm financially flexible. Money don't have no memory.
Really doesn't. It's Louisville Gun. Gun. All right. Is there anything I didn't touch base with you on? I know I've taken you all over the place, and I've pushed back a lot, and I don't mean it to. I just want.
It's valuable.
All of it. Yeah. No, I just want you to throw all the possibilities out here, because I am concerned with everything that you're saying. It's just that, like, I really want people to remember at the end of the day that we are still the United States of America, and we're not just fucking sitting around waiting for the worst to happen. We're
American. At the end of the day, we're Americans, bro. The problem is that some people don't care, or some people see being American as an evil, and until you teach the opposite of that, these people.
Well, I've always said this: like, people need to stop thinking patriotism has to do with anything with the government. It doesn't. It has to do with the idea and the founding of your country, and that's it.
Yeah,
anywhere.
You have people that think America is this horrible, racist, awful country, and they've never been outside of their state.
Yeah, they've never been. Oh, they definitely never left the shores. Which, by the way, I meant to bring that up. Is like, is there any more defensible, greatest thing in the world than just like the hope
for the worst possible case of an actual invasion, because you don't even need the military. You're not going to get past our people.
Man, I don't want to. I like toilet paper and taking a shit in a warm.
Yeah. I'm with you on all that. I just say, like, if you invade the coast, you're gonna have a bad time, and you're never, like, the people in the plains in the Midwest are never gonna get a chance to have fun because everyone will be dead by then.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm perfectly okay with the coast getting wiped out and them hitting the Appalachians and the Rockies.
No one's gonna make it. That's my point.
Yeah. Well, let them attrit in New York. Let them attrit and see.
We'll never make it through the gangs in the cities of New York. That's my.
I don't know, man. I mean, I think
you get into upstate New York, those are a different type of people up there.
Yeah.
You don't want that. You don't. Yeah. Anyway, it is what
I mean. It's like you said, man. After 9/11, you saw the country pull together. 9/11 happened, and you saw small town fire departments sending their fire engines to New York. You saw first responders from all over the country volunteering, sending teams to New York. Doctors, nurses, EMTs. You saw schools filled with our kids putting together care packages for New York. After 9/11, everybody was in New York, and did you ever watch a show, Rescue Me with Dennis Leary?
No, I never watched it, but I seen enough of the previews.
Yeah. I mean, that was a great show. And,
was it like a patriotic slant or what?
Well, it's like, it took place after 9/11. The show started after 9/11, and he's a firefighter that was one of the, his character. What's that?
Was he in Chicago? Was it based in Chicago or was it New York?
No, he was a New York firefighter, and he lost a few of his buddies. I mean, the premise of the show is he's a New York firefighter. He responded to 9/11, the World Trade Center. He lost a couple of his buddies in the fire. And he's dealing with PTSD. He's an alcoholic. He's a womanizing shitbag. It's a great show. But one of the scenes in the show was 9/11 happened. All you firefighters were getting blowjobs for months, and everybody viewed you as a hero. And now here you are, you're an alcoholic drunk driver, and nobody cares. That's the thing, is you got credit for a little while, and then everybody got back to normal and it's business as usual. Yeah. And short of something happening that pulls us together as a nation, I don't know what it'll take. I thought
COVID would do it, and I know a lot of people were banking on that happening as being like an opportunity to serve your community, but it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, they made sure that
everybody, it was too politicized. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody was like, no, COVID can't possibly be a bioweapon, until it turned out it was.
Yeah. No, but you're right. Like, we're kind of like, I hate to say it, but outside of another 9/11 type event, like, what is it going to be that's going to take?
Yeah, I have no idea. I think it's going to take, at this point, it may take an alien invasion. It may take,
that'd be fun.
Yeah. An Armageddon event, where a meteorite hits the country and everybody has to pull together. I don't know what it will take for us to unite under a common cause. And Pat, until something like that happens, we've got irreconcilable differences, and we may be heading for a national divorce.
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to get to that point in our lifetime, but
I don't want to see it.
I don't either, but
God forbid if it happens.
100% with you that we are totally desperately in need of some sort of unifying force, because I would much rather see that than something else.
Yeah. I don't want to see
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to see I don't want to see conflict on our shores. And God forbid if it does happen, let it happen while I can do something instead of my son.
No, that's a great point, but I would say that we're never as fortunate as our thoughts. That's what I would say. We're never as fortunate as our thoughts, because I'm with you on that. As I get older and older, it's just like, man, I train like I'm still 21, but the reality is very different, right? So, but I don't want my kid involved in anything like this. I want us to be able to do the rational thing and figure out our fucking shit and not have to deal with stuff like that. But you're right, it's a scary proposition, and I hope we never have to deal with it. And I just hope that peacefully we can come together as a nation, because that's what we need.
Oh, I'm going to meme my way into success, I hope, and
do it.
Demoralize the enemy.
Right. I'm doing Louisville Gun on Twitter.
I'm doing my part
else?
to traumatize my family. No, I'm not on the Instagram.
Okay, good.
There's too many harlots on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram is a weird place. But anyway, so that's Louisville Gun. He is on Twitter. You can find him. You can find me at Eric TWBB. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you hanging out and drinking with us. I don't even know if Louisville Gun drank because he's not showing his face, which he shouldn't. But he is he's very.
I stuck to fentanyl. That's what I've been doing tonight.
That's what he does. All right. So, but he's a great account on Twitter. Please go follow him.
Thank you.
Posting. I appreciate you hanging out with me for the time being. And, you have yourself a great night, my friend.
I appreciate you having me on, man. This has been a great experience.
Been overdue.
It's been overdue. I got to look at you for 2.5 hours, and it truly has been a blessing for me. I'm going to do terrible things to myself later.
You're welcome. All right, brother. You have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
You too, man.
All right, buddy.